Alrighty, Sennheiser HD800 headphones. First of all, I'm going to start off by apologizing. I know it has been a month since I've uploaded, but things in life happen. Had a lot of things accumulate, some tests, schoolwork, that kind of stuff. So I've been pretty behind on some things, catching up on a lot of other things, and well, I had to take some time. Also, I got my hands on these babies, and these babies, well, I didn't want to just put them on, give them a quick review, and then tell you, I like them, I don't like them, I hate them, I love them. I wanted to actually go in depth with these, both single-ended and balanced, and unfortunately, I don't have a tube amp to test that out, so sorry for that. But yeah, no space for a tube amp, and in South Texas, I don't want the heat. I really don't want that heat. Anyway, so let's start off with the build quality of these headphones. The build quality is really, really good. I know these look like metal, but they're actually plastic. They're very, very good plastic, except for like the grills. Those are metal. This piece on top of the headband is also metal. But other than that, everything else is just plastic. It's very fantastic plastic. God, bad memories. It's very, very good plastic on these headphones. Definitely great. So I really wouldn't worry about these breaking on you unless you're passing them around like a football. Don't pass these around like a football. They're not made for that. But other than that, I mean, I think they should hold up pretty well over the test of time. However, the finish on these headphones, it's great and it looks beautiful. However, it can leave some blemishes behind. I'll see if I can pick some of these up on camera. You can see that these are, well, they're very well taken care of. However, they are not in perfect condition. And now I myself haven't put any of these blemishes on. I got these pre-owned from someone else, and they're a fantastic deal, by the way, which we'll get into later. But yeah, they're clearly scuffed here and there. That's just unfortunate. It's the way it rolls. So that's how it goes with the build. Now, it comes with a display box. Obviously, it's a beautiful box, and it has this little thing right here so that it holds the box up, as opposed to with like an HD600. Very nice box. It's a slightly larger box, but it's the same design. Also, I know the box is scuffed as well. Pre-owned, what can you do? Comes with a cable. Does not come with a balance cable, so ignore that, but I've been doing some testing on the balance cable, so I don't feel like connecting and disconnecting very often. Cable it comes with is a single-ended silver, and it says, come on, it says Sennheiser on it. The connector itself is great. The connector on both ends, all connectors are fantastic. The cable itself, on the other hand, is poo-poo. I do not like this at all. It is thick. It is, frankly, unnecessarily thick cable, and it kinks like, well, it kinks like my ex-girlfriend. But, yeah, I don't like this cable whatsoever. Come on, Sennheiser. Like, even my vacuum cleaner has a more fashion sense than you. Like, or practicality, a sense of practicality. This is just, It's not the worst cable I've seen out there. I think the title still goes to the HE-4XX and the Hifiman Sundaras. The stock cable on those are just like, throw them away. When you buy the headphone, immediately buy an aftermarket cable for them. And this one, I would still recommend an aftermarket cable, but this one has more of a more usefulness to it. So I don't think it's absolutely terrible, but as time goes by, you might definitely want to get an aftermarket cable, even if it is another single-ended cable of the same length. At least it'll be better that way. Comfort on these. These are unusually large for a headphone. Here's a reference. Here's my hand. Palm of my hand. These are huge. These are huge headphones. They are a spaceship on your head. You would imagine that the comfort on these is terrible. No, it's actually quite great, but it is something that you have to get used to. I definitely had to get used to it because they have a lighter clamp, which means that it's quite, how do you say it? it's very, very tough to get used to, just because with other headphones, you may be used to something that you can, I don't know, move around with a little more, look left and right, look down, and they won't really adjust. These, on the other hand, have a lot of real estate inside the cup for your head, for your ear to move around in before they hit an edge and, you know, stop the headphone from moving. So there's a lot of area for your ear to move around in there. When you look down, it's going to slide down. When you look up, it's not really going to slide up, but you understand. It's going to shift around your head quite a bit, and it's tough to get used to at first. And initially, it did cause a little bit of pressure on my lower jaw, which was, well, a little disheartening. But as time went by and I used these as my daily driver, I come to realize that I've grown more adjusted to them. I've learned not to headbang so much. And yeah, you get used to it for the most part, but they definitely are not the most comfortable headphone I have ever worn. The title for that still goes to the K7XX by AKG, and I'm pretty sure all other AKG models that are have the similar build and aesthetic to it, the similar build type to the K7XX. I'm very certain those are still the top of the comfort on the comfort charts for headphones. Now, this is the part you're getting. This is the part you've been waiting for. By the way, no hot spots on my head whatsoever, even up here, nothing at all. Then again, I have poofy hair, so not extremely poofy, but definitely not short hair. So just keep that in mind. Now let's get into the sound. This one is quite interesting. The bass is definitely on the lighter side. It's definitely not for bass heads. However, it is quite sizable for, well, a dynamic headphone that doesn't put emphasis on, oh, top-notch bass quality and OP, ridiculous levels of bass. For a headphone that does not advertise their bass levels like that, it is quite substantial. I'd say it's quite decent. I definitely don't require any more than this, unless you really wanted to get to bass head levels. So I would not call it heavy bass whatsoever, but I would not call it extremely light bass. I'd put it on the lighter side. What else? It extends quite deep for a dynamic headphone. Dynamic headphones tend to have a large amount of roll off, especially around the lower bass. They really don't reach that low. These, well, they do have roll off because, well, it's a dynamic. What can you do? But the roll off it's quite low. It's very impressive. It reaches pretty deep into the subsonic levels of the frequency response. I really, really like that on these headphones. It goes to show that you don't need massive bass to reach deep levels of bass. You need good bass. If you have good bass, you can get it done. You don't need big bass. So thank you, Sennheiser, for showing us that that is capable in a dynamic headphone. The mid bass can get just a tad up there for my preference. I mean, me coming from the 600s, you know, it just got a tad up there, but it's definitely not a problem whatsoever, and it's definitely should not be a concern when purchasing this headphone. Now let's jump into the mids. I don't have a lot to say here as far as the mids go. Compared to the rest, the vocals, they're quite a bit forward, but due to their sound stage, they're not as forward as you might expect them to be. Let me just pull this in a little closer to me so you can see it in better detail. So yeah, not quite as forward as you may expect, but it's definitely not hidden in the back, you know, lost forever. Definitely not. The background vocals, on the other hand, are quite clear and quite distinguishable from the main, from the lead vocals. I find that to be quite good on these headphones, and I did enjoy the background vocals and their positioning and stuff like that, but we'll get to that in a later part of the review. Treble. Oh boy. Oh boy, treble. Treble is, well, it's bright on these headphones. It's certainly bright. These are one of the brighter headphones that I have heard. Oh boy. Listen, it's a relatively smooth treble response, but it is definitely bright. And yeah, it does have a little bit of peakiness to it. But for the most part, you can definitely get used to the treble on this headphone and not have to worry about that. Of course, if you're coming from something incredibly dark like HD6XX, running them single-ended, or Beats, yeah, these are definitely going to slap you in the face with treble. It's going to be a night and day difference. However, trust me, you can get used to it, and it does pay off because the detail in the treble is, my goodness, so excellent. Like, you cannot find a better detailed headphone under $1,000 than this. I haven't heard one yet. If you know of a headphone that can produce better detail than this without having to get that bright, you let me know in the comment section because I want to review that thing, okay? What else? So yeah, like I said, despite being bright, they are relatively smooth. You can get used to them. However, there are a couple of songs, and I will mention which songs, that I just simply could not get used to, that I had to EQ them for my own sanity. Those songs just, they got up there. You either turned it down, but then when you turned it down, everything else was just like too low to appreciate. And then all you had was just treble. And at that point, you just didn't really want to listen to the song at all, you know? So I downloaded Equalizer APO. Thank you, Metal571, for recommending me that equalizer. And I got the piece GUI that comes with it for easier handling and a more user-friendly experience. So Metal571 has a preset already for you. If you go into his video, and I'll leave a link to it, you can definitely see that he has a recommendation for how much to gain, how much to lose, how much to lower it by, and on which filter to do it in. I tried it out. Personally, I think it takes away what makes these special. Maybe to a lesser extent, maybe like instead of, I don't know, say lowering something by 5 decibels, maybe by 3, it doesn't detract from the overall experience as much, but it also makes them more agreeable and comfortable to listen to. Just an example. I've yet to try that out, but personally, the reason I haven't tried it out is because I wanted to keep these as stock as possible, and I wanted to say, like, how much do I really have to modify these to be able to enjoy them? And, well, the result was I only had to go to 6.5K, lower it by 4 decibels on a PK filter with a quantity of 2. That was all I had to do. And after that, they changed into, yes, they are still bright. Yes, they are still quite detailed. They still possess that special quality about them, but they're not killing you at the 6.5K either. They're still quite acceptable, but they're still quite bright. So I really think these just need some minor EQ to get used to them. Just a minor EQ in the treble. And you can mess with that around. You can mess around with that yourself. Equalizer APO is quite an easy thing to use, and it has a simple toggle, like on and off switch, so that you can turn it on whenever you listen to this, and then when you're using anything else or some speakers or whatever, just toggle it off, and you're perfectly fine. There's no reason to go messing around and resetting everything back to stock and then adjusting settings. No, just on, off, no problems. Soundstage. Sorry, I forgot to mention something. These are airy as heck. Super airy. I mean, incredibly airy headphones. They're definitely one of the more airy headphones I've heard, but not the airiest. And the reason for that is because although they are bright, like I said, they are smooth, which means that there are no peaks that make you experience like, oh, super airy either. So good airiness to them. I like that a lot. Soundstage. Jesus, these things are the super ultra wide monitor of headphones. These things are wide as heck. you will not find a wider headphone, or at the very least, I have yet to listen to a wider headphone than the HD800. These are incredible. I wouldn't say they're like listening to speakers. No, I think I still give that over to the Sundara, not because of the width, but because of just the overall feeling of wearing them and listening to them and the soundstage put together. So I wouldn't say these are like listening to speakers, but they're definitely wide. They're definitely wide headphones. What else? Yeah, the soundstage is quite incredible. They really let you re-experience your music from scratch. I'll give you an example. Imagine a plate and food on the plate. Food are your details, your sounds, right? The plate is the soundstage. So imagine you have the widest, biggest plate you could find, and then you had these food pieces on them, like, I don't know, mashed potatoes, the gravy, I don't know, green beans, corn, whatever, right? And they are located on the plate, but they're not all the way at the edge of the plate either. There's still way more plate area to place food on, but these are located like, sure, in the farther regions of the plate, but not exactly at the very edge either. That's what I would describe the soundstage on these. Massive soundstage, relatively massive imaging and location of sounds. That's what it felt like to me, and certainly not in a bad way. I think it's in a good way. Like I said, these are massive. Now let's get to the imaging. Amazing imaging, just like the 800S, but we'll get to the 800S in a later video. They are incredible. I tested these out single-ended versus balanced, and I found that, let's go back to the plate analogy. Depending on the track, it either decreases the size of the plate to match the rest of the sounds and make it sound more cohesive, or it spreads the sounds a little farther to reach the outer edges of the plate. It does either one of these depending on what song you pick when you go with balanced over single-ended. So not only can you hear where a sound is, let's say it's over here, but you can hear exactly where within that range, within that area, where that sound is coming from. And you can hear tiny details, the tiny differences between it traveling left and right in that tiny area, or up and down, whatever it is you want to say. You can definitely hear that difference. I tried them out a bit for gaming, not a whole lot, just because I prefer my K7XX for gaming because they're a more comfortable sound signature, yet they still have the width and that bass response, that, relatively low end. I still like those better, but I tried these out for gaming. They're quite great because of that soundstage. They are definitely a very nice headphone for gaming. Let's get to some impressions here that I noticed when testing out some songs. So, for example, City to City by Zomboy featuring Bell Humble. At the 3-minute mark, the 800s had a background sound at the left side that it becomes slightly less audible with the, the going balanced over single-ended. So that wasn't as good. The lows to mids bass becomes slightly elevated at that region as well, which in my opinion was a good thing for the song because it is an electronic song. So it became better overall. And the electronic sounds in the mids become slightly more discernible, which is good. I tested out the, don't judge me, the theme to Devilman Crybaby, okay? Not the title theme, but the theme, I guess you could say the reimagined, or the reimagined theme of the original Devilman show. At 250, there were some deep vocals that were more distinguishable, running them, how do you say it? Hold on a second. Okay, I see the problem here. So the deep vocals are more distinguishable when running them balanced as opposed to single-ended at the 250 mark in the song. You can notice the decay of the brass and the background sound effects was much faster when running them balanced as opposed to single-ended. And the imaging became slightly better. And I want to say puts the detail somewhere between running the 800 single-ended and the HD800S, which we will get to in another video. So what else? I got Dream On by Postmodern Jukebox. When running them balanced, there was an increase in the detail. Like I said, somewhere between running them single-ended and the HD800S levels. The texture of the cello solo, somewhere in the middle of the song, when he goes to pizzicato and then he switches over to the bow, you can feel the texture a little more. It sounds less like a sound and more like you can actually hear his finger going behind the string and plucking and making that doing kind of sound, you know. In Bangarang, around 211, there's an airiness, a sound that, that falls under the airiness category, making kind of like a s. Now, it may have lost a bit of imaging with the balanced. So this is the part of Bangarang that isn't incredibly loud and overdone. And in this part, you can hear that sound kind of travel around the right side of your ear initially, and you can pinpoint exactly where it is, and then it goes down somewhere, and then it comes up to the left side, and then trails off there before the song begins to pick up again, and then the beat drops again. So that was what I found there. And then last of all, I have Rightfully from, the opening to Goblin Slayer. I know, all right, call me a weeb in the comments, I don't care. So, the violas in the intro and in the other more quiet parts of the song where you can hear the string instruments more clearly, it becomes more distinguishable, the viola itself. I like that. I like the viola. I think it's a very underappreciated instrument that could use a little more spotlight, and definitely these headphones gave it a little more spotlight when running it balanced as opposed to single-ended. So kudos to that. Now, I feel like it may have brought the soundstage in a bit, but brought a little more focus onto the instruments themselves. So like I said, that was that example of the plate became a little smaller, but the food was able to fit there a little better, and it became more distinguishable, you know, as opposed to just being scattered around in random plates in random areas of a larger plate. So I really appreciate that there. And well, those were the 5 songs I tested with for my comparison between single-ended versus balanced. So overall, for those looking for detail, these things are an absolute champ. You will not find anything better at this price point for detail than these. For those who are purely bass heads, stay away. You know, despite their size, you would imagine that a larger a larger driver would equal larger bass. That's not true. It equals deeper bass, which these certainly have compared to most dynamics, but it does not equal larger bass. It's decent bass, quite substantial, but not for bass heads. I personally could not tolerate the treble on some of these tracks. For example, like in City to City and Bangarang. That's when I absolutely had to use the EQ, and then although it was still quite bright, it was much more bearable than using them stock. I could not. So overall, I think these are an excellent purchase at their pre-owned price of, like, let's say $750 to $800 tops. I'd hesitate spending $800. I think $750 is a more reasonable range to buy these for. Just because they do not come with their own balanced cable, you would have to purchase an aftermarket cable on your own. They could only come with a single-ended, like you see here. And who knows what condition they're going to be in. Of course, you'd want to buy the best condition headphone that you could possibly find. But yeah, $750 I think is a more reasonable price point for the HD800 assuming they don't come with a balanced cable, which they shouldn't if they're selling the factory stuff to you, you know. But then again, like I said, you're probably going to have to buy a different cable because this cable is kind of trash. So, who cares? Yeah, honestly, that's it. I really like these headphones, and I'm actually considering keeping these as my potential daily driver from here on out. I don't know yet how I'm going to do it with reference, just because I don't want to skew away from what is neutral or what is natural, because these are definitely not natural. Let me tell you that. They're quite detailed, but they're not natural. They're on the brighter side. That is for certain. I can tell you that. But I don't think that should detract from your overall experience unless you are really, really, really prone to treble. Most people can get used to the treble, I think, as long as you take the time to get used to it. Don't just listen to it for a day and say, no, these aren't for me. No. Take a couple time. Take a little bit of time. Maybe work out some of the EQ and then see if you like it or not. Yeah, I think these are quite great. That's it.